Navigating through today's social and political climates is challenging on its own, but it can be even tougher dilemma for those of us with kids.
In the wake of this weekend's nationwide student-led demonstrations, these issues are almost unavoidable and probably have raised the questions for most parents. How can we talk to our kids in a healthy way about these marches and the social activism?
Here to give us some tips and support on this issue is clinical psychologist Dr. John Duffy and best-selling author of The Available Parent and co-host of the new podcast, Better. Hello, and thanks for joining us.
Hi, guys. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, so we're happy that you're here because this is important. I mean, it's so much going on in the world, and previously we've seen people kind of, parents, I think a generation kind of ignored it because they were like, don't talk about politics in school. Don't talk about these issues. Respect everyone, but we need to talk about it. How do we start this combo?
We have to talk about it, and now every crisis, every event that happens like this is a parenting opportunity. So what parents have to keep in mind is the developmental level of their kids, the ages of their kids, and the sensitivity level of their kids. So when we talk about the events in Parkland, Florida, we can't just tell our kids everything that's happened and every gory detail, but we need to tell them what they need to know without creating undue anxiety in them. What the marches give us the opportunity to do is to put kind of a positive context around the whole thing and say, well, here's what happened. You know, a very angry, upset young man went into a school and hurt a bunch of people, killed some people, but with these marches and with these rallies, everybody who's holding a sign, everybody who's yelling is trying to do something to make sure this never happens again. Even if people don't agree on it, people are working really, really hard to make sure that you and all your classmates are safe, and kids need to hear that.
Now, Dr. John, you know, having a 10-year-old, I'm a father of a 10-year-old son. I didn't know how deep to get into this stuff, how much to talk about guns and reform and stuff like that. I did tell him, you know, if you see something, say something. Always be cautious of your surroundings. Always go to an adult, teacher, guidance counselor, whomever, if you see anything going on. But how much do you really dig into it to a 10-year-old who's only in 4th grade?
With a 10-year-old, you can only go so far. This is one of those things where you don't want to tell him everything that's happened because you're going to create this anxiety in him, right? These things, as much as they happen, as much as we see them in the news, these things are actually fairly rare. The likelihood that your son is going to be involved in anything like this is rare. And you want to emphasize that point, that people are trying really, really hard to make sure this doesn't happen, and it's really unlikely to happen to him. And sometimes that's where activism comes in and participation. We can talk about that a little bit here, but if he decides to get involved in some way, there's some empowerment in that.
How do you encourage that activism? Do you almost push them to do so? Do you project your ideals on them? Like, if I want to be somebody out there, do I push my child to do that too? How does that work?
Well, you see, when you watch these rallies, you see that there are children there. Some people are bringing their children, right? And part of that is that they want them to get this feel of activism. Part of it is that it's a little bit of a ritual to honor those who have gone and to kind of get ready for what's coming next, right? So we want to get our kids in that mindset of being politically active in some way. And even at 10 years old now, because kids are growing up really, really fast, we can do that even with our 10-year-olds.
So how about social media? Because I feel like that must play a huge role in affecting their thoughts and galvanizing their peers. How do we talk through that?
You guys, when I started doing this job, was shortly after Columbine happened. Back then, there was no social media, and parents were able to shield their kids almost entirely from what happened. So it's a very, very different world now because every kid, including your 10-year-old, is well aware of precisely what happened. We cannot hide any of this stuff from our kids.
I remember when 9/11 happened, and my parents kind of shielded me from the news even. Now that would not be possible.
Not possible, right? I mean, just with social media, with every iPad, with every screen, friends, parents, kids know what's going on. So that might seem like really bad news for parents, but it's actually this opportunity to talk to your kids about what's going on in the world and what they can do to play a role in it, an active role in it, and also kind of let them know that we as parents, part of our mission is to keep them safe, and that's our goal.
You know, how much also, there's a political element to all this as well, obviously. How much, take my 10-year-old out of it, just young children in general, or young adults in general, as you're raising maybe a high school teen, how much do you, mention the political side to all this
Yeah,
stuff and
yeah.
inject that into the conversation.
Instead of making it political, because it's really tough for a 10, 11, even 12-year-old
Sure.
child to wrap their brain around the political differences between parties, between conservative and liberal. But if we talk to our kids about right and wrong, if we talk to them about what we believe, and we draw from them what they think. So sometimes I ask kids that I work with, and I work with kids as young as your child's age up to 20, 25.
Sure.
And to ask them, well, what do you guys think? What do you guys think of this climate? What do you think a good solution would be, or a set of solutions to these problems? Kids will surprise you almost every time and come up with something interesting, and they'll want to participate. I don't think you have to make it political. I think you can just say, you know what, people disagree about this because it's a really important issue.
That's great stuff. Dr. John Duffy, really appreciate your time. Such a timely issue. What better than having a best-selling author and psychologist here to talk to us about it all.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you very much. All right, well, Dr. Duffy, for more information and tips on him, go to drjohnduffy.com, and also be sure to also check out his new podcast, Better.